Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 6:20 public hearing, Public Works hearing. I'll just let folks know that this evening at 6:20, we have a public hearing for utility grant location of Lynn and Brockton Ave and Empire Street, 625. Another utility grant of location. Then at 6:30, we have an order, urban revitalization and development plan, an amendment that's going on. And at 6:45, we have a finance committee meeting, which handles a whole bunch of the things that are out there. So I just want to let folks know we have some public hearings going on. So this is a public hearing, 2024-047, grant of location, National Grid, gas main replacement, Lynn Street, Brockton Ave, and Empire Street. So at this point, I would like to ask anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition to come to the podium, state your name and address. If you do not wish to speak, but would like to support or show opposition and have it recorded, please sign in on the sheet on the table at the back of the chamber. So is anybody in favor or against? Seeing nobody coming up, and so no further public comment is taking place, I will close this public hearing at 6:22. We'll be back in 3 minutes for the grant of location at Coddington Street and Faxon Ave to Southern Artery. Thank you. Okay, we're back. I would like to call the Monday, May 20th, 6:25 public hearing to order. This public hearing is for Council Order 2024-053, grant of location, National Grid, Coddington Street, Faxon Ave to Southern Artery. So if there's anybody at this point would like to speak in favor or opposition, please come to the podium and state your name and address. If you do not wish to speak, but would like to your support or opposition recorded, please sign in on the sheet on the table at the back of the chamber. So is there anybody in favor or against? Okay. So seeing that there is no further public comment, I will close this meeting at 6:26, and at 6:30, there'll be a meeting on the Urban Revitalization and Development Plan and Amendment, number 6. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to open up the public hearing this evening, 2024-039. Is the order on Urban Revitalization and Development Plan and Amendment 6. Before we start, Jen, could you call a roll?
Councilor Kane. Present. Councilor Ash. Councilor Campbell. Present. Councilor DeBona. Councilor Devine. Present. Councilor Harris. Present. Councilor Liang. Present. Councilor Minton. Councilor McCarthy.
Present.
7 members.
Thank you. And can we all stand for a sec for pledge allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Also, before I begin, I'm going to read the open meeting law. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. So I'd like to open up the public hearing on the URDP. A couple of points. For the folks that don't want to come up to the podium, there's a sign-in opposed or in favor of sheet in the back. And also there's translation services, if anyone needs them, in the back of the hall this evening. So with that, I will open it up the public hearing. I'd like the limit to be 4 minutes, so you can make your point, but 4-minute limit. Come up and state your name and your address. Thank you. Oh, before we start, Bill, excuse me, could I get my phone? My apologies. Could I get the advisory board up? First, I make a comment, Bill, then I'll open it up to the general public. My apologies. And also, I'm going to have Mr. Fatsy's also come up, and then I'll open it up to everybody.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Timothy Cahill, 51 Grenwald Road in Quincy, and I'm on the Citizens Advisory Committee. Just a little bit of a background. This is the 6th amendment to the approved Urban Revitalization Development Plan for Quincy Center. And those of us on the committee, Marilyn Manning, myself, Michael Bellotti, Kerry Delaney, and Robert Sarasoli. And we've got support and ongoing backup from the Department of Planning as well. We met on May 6th, where the city presented the updated Quincy Center URDP amendment. We talked about it, we discussed it, and we're here to make a recommendation that we are unanimously in support of the Quincy Center URDP findings, including the area eligibility designation, and finding that the ordinary operations of private enterprise acting alone are unlikely to achieve the further revitalization of Quincy Center. We unanimously support the planning and policy objectives that will be advanced by adoption and implementation of the Quincy Center URDP. I'm sure you have this before you, but I'll just go briefly over the boundary expansion north of Dimmock Street, west of Granite Street, and south to South Street to create new development areas. Updates to acquisition and disposition activities, public infrastructure improvements such as pedestrian bridge, new public spaces and flood control measures, and an extension of the plan for an additional 20 years. We did make some suggestions. The CAC appreciates that parking is addressed in UDAP number 6 with a proposal for 2 new city-owned garages. The CAC requests the city continues to consider ways of limiting the potential parking impacts to adjacent residential areas. Number 6 highlights the need for increased public open space in the district. The CAC agrees with this determination, requests that public spaces remain a priority. And the CAC supports the new URDP number 6 budget that has been updated to reflect the estimated $248 million in public costs. The CAC understands the city will continue to rely on the District Improvement Financing Program, as well as securing financial support from the Commonwealth and the federal government in order to carry out all of the public improvements. So we unanimously support this. I speak on behalf of some of the members who aren't here, but we do have a couple others that would like to come up, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. Okay, thank you.
I'm Marilyn Manning. I'm part of the Citizens Committee. I just have been fully informed of the plan and speaking in complete support of it. This planning process has been long a part of, I don't think there's anyone here that has watched Quincy Center undeveloped and developed. Time spent in breathing and living in Quincy Center showed me how poorly unkept it was, inadequate parking, and above all, no shoppers. Residents had found more places to spend their retail dollars. Councilors appeared interested, but in the end, they were really more concerned with their wards, and Quincy Center did not have a total advocate. When there came votes for Quincy Center, there really wasn't anyone there to vote, so it's quite understandable that time spent there was not going to be very valuable. Those planning Quincy's progress for the future deserve my cooperation and your cooperation in fulfilling Quincy Center's rebirth. Quincy Center, I believe, is in a renaissance period, building on our illustrious historic past and preparing for an illustrious future. I honestly do not think anyone here is driving a car from 1992, and we should not be dealing with anything that will not take us into the next century. And I'm speaking totally in support of the plan that they have going forward. Thank you.
My name's Robert Sarasoli. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Quincy. Grew up in Quincy Point, and I've lived in downtown Quincy for 42 years on Russell Park, so my street is right in the middle of this proposal. I just wanted to come and echo the sentiments of the director of the chamber, Mr. Cahill, and Ms. Manning, and say that I think this is a good proposal, and I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Delaney. I'm the owner and co-owner of two businesses, 16C and Kilroy's, right in the heart of downtown Quincy Center on Cottage Ave. I'm a member of the Citizens Advisory Board, grew up in Quincy, and I remember very, very well the very difficult years the square went through when I was growing up. I've made a substantial investment in our downtown because I believe in its future and the vision the mayor and this council have created for it. I offer my testimony this evening in strong support of the URDP amendment because it will continue to create new opportunities for growth and stability in the downtown. We've made great progress over the years, but the work is not yet done. This amendment to the URDP is vital to continuing that progress over the next several years. Thank you.
Good evening. Also a member of the committee, Mike Bellotti, 33 Bayberry Road. Just want to endorse just fully this amendment, and also just congratulate the city council, the mayor, and all the stakeholders for creating a plan in Quincy that is, I guess, fluid enough to keep moving and changing it in ways you have to that isn't a complete shock to the taxpayers and the residents of Quincy, but also making it concrete enough that you have a plan. It's incredible what you folks have done over the past several years, making sure that Quincy Center is, finally getting to a point where we can see major change. I think we're on the cusp of it, and I just very happy to be part of that. I want to thank the mayor also for allowing me to participate. So that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else from the advisory? Mr. Fatsis, why don't you come up, and then I'll open it up to the public.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Jim Fatsis. I'm the planning director in the city of Quincy, and I bring forth the planning board's endorsement at its meeting on Wednesday, May 15th. They voted the following. Whereas the city of Quincy's planning board is required pursuant to Section 48 of Chapter 121B of the general laws and Chapter 898 of the Acts of 1973 to reach certain conclusions regarding Quincy Center's district urban revitalization and development plan, call it the plan after this, and submitted this to this body. Whereas the project area as identified in the plan remains a decadent area, and whereas the project area would not, by private enterprise alone and without either government subsidy or the exercise of governmental powers, be made available for redevelopment. And whereas the proposed land uses and building requirements in the URD project area will afford maximum opportunity to privately finance urban renewal and revitalization consistent with the needs of the locality as a whole, then now therefore be it resolved by the Quincy Planning Board to report to the Director of the Quincy Department of Planning and Community Development, the Mayor, and the City Council the following. The board has determined the plan is based on a local survey, and the board has determined that the plan conforms to a comprehensive plan for the locality as a whole. It recommends that the Quincy City Council and the mayor approve Amendment 6 dated April 1st, 2024 to the Quincy Center Urban Revitalization and Development Plan that will expand the URD project area and extend the plan 20 years to expire on April 1st, 2047. It also recommends that the City Council authorize the mayor to proceed with urban renewal activities on the city's behalf as set forth in the plan. It also recommends that upon final approval of Amendment 6 by the City Council, that the Quincy Department of Planning and Community Development forward said URDP Amendment 6 to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities for final administrative approvals. The above findings were adopted at an open public meeting of the Quincy City Planning Board, and it is signed respectfully and unanimously the 5 members of the Quincy Planning Board: Kimberly Beelan, Larry Liuzzo, John Kelly, Patrick Foley, and Christopher Mead. That is the recommendation of the Planning Board. Thank you, Chairman.
Hi, Elise McCarthy. I work at 36 Adams Street, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. So our I'm repetitive, I know, but our building was built in 1918 at 36 Adams Street. It was the home of Jeremiah McInerney, the local attorney for the Sacco and Vanzetti law case, and my father-in-law and his father came out from their office in Back Bay to here in 1955. I've been there 29 years. He practiced for 65 years there. So I have several questions. First of all, why can't this project for the Presidential Library project utilize number 8, pending outcome of the SJC decision on that, 8, 24, and 26 Adams Street, for which the city paid $9 million. At some point, it got renamed the Adams Street Corridor, which somehow happened, and I'm not really clear why you need the entire street just swept and flattened, as I've been told our office will be flattened, which will be very sad for me, but my father-in-law, as I said before, will roll over in his grave. Second of all, it's not my bailiwick, but the financing doesn't seem, it seems somewhat, you're kicking the can down the road. If the DIF ends in 2037, or you're saying 2047, and projects go over, you can certainly bankrupt the city. That's not my bailiwick, but healthcare is. And at the moment, just as an aside, if there's all these funds slushing around, why don't we have an inpatient hospital for this city of 101,000 people? If you have chest pain and you have trauma, I was on staff at Quincy Hospital. It's now a gazillion luxury apartment buildings. That doesn't help the citizens of Quincy if you have trauma or chest pain. So I think if there's all this money sloshing around, let's really take care of our residents rather than doing these grand projects. So thank you for your time.
Evening. Hi, my name's Bob Haley. I live at 75 Elmwood Park. I'd just like to give you a little background. I've worked in municipal finance for 37 years, mostly as treasurer, tax collector in a number of communities. I was on the Quincy Retirement Board. I've been on a number of, appointed to a number of committees in the city of Quincy. I've been directly involved in between 50 and 75 bond issues for various municipalities. I'm here to ask you to vote no on the Plan 6 amendment, as well as no for the authorization of $157 million. The taxpayers can't afford to pay for the downtown redevelopment. As you are aware, the District Improvement Financing Plan was approved in 2007. The DIF, as it's called, is set to expire in 2037. The financial documentation that was submitted as part of the new DIF request shows $236 million has been approved so far to fund the DIF. 90% of that money is in short-term bonds, which is still outstanding. The report states the DIF debt will increase to $393.8 million if the $157 million is approved by the City Council. I have read and reviewed all the previous bond authorizations that the City Council has approved. None of the previous reports show any funding schedule that we used to pay back the $194 million in outstanding short-term debt. So now you have Phase 5, bond authorization of $157 million. And now we have a schedule to pay back the $157 million. The repayment schedule is for 40 years. 40 years. When that's paid back, it's going to cost $319 million, more than double the original request. Now, if you look at a couple other things, the DIF ends in 2037. Debt payments are scheduled to be made until 2063, 26 years after the DIF expires. So I don't know why they were always talking about the DIF paying for this, because it's not gonna. So what happens when the DIF expires? The tax revenue from the DIF becomes part of the general taxation. That means that debt payments now become part of the city budget. This means the taxpayers will pay back this money. Well, what happens if the revenue is less than the DIF expenditure after 2037? The budget pays for any deficits. And like I said, there's 12 years in the schedule that show less revenue than you need to pay the debt. So that's ridiculous to begin with. The real problem is the city's lack of funding schedule for the $194 million in short-term bond anticipation notes that are outstanding prior to tonight's request from the mayor. Where will the city get the money to pay back this debt? As I stated previously, none of the other bond authorization requests showed any repayment schedule for the debt. There is no schedule to pay back any of the bond authorizations 2, 3, and 4, yet the mayor wants you to authorize another $157 million. It's ridiculous and short-sighted by the mayor to try and move this project forward without a comprehensive financial plan that will show all the debt that is due to the city and the city's plan to pay back all of the money owed. The city is proposing a 40-year debt schedule to pay back the $147 million. As we see on the schedule, the 40-year payback doubles the original request to $319 million. If you use the same data to fund the $194 million of outstanding short-term debt, this would mean the city would own an additional $388 million, or approximately $9.5 million a year for 40 years. So I guess through you, Councilor McCarthy, I would ask that the City Council at least find out where the city is coming up with that $388 million prior to moving the project forward. The council needs to step up and protect the taxpayers from paying for the downtown redevelopment. The taxpayers have been told time and time again that the downtown pays for itself. If you vote this tonight without addressing the issue, the taxpayers will pay millions of dollars for the downtown project. Thank you.
My name's Kathy Thrun. I live in Wollaston, Massachusetts. I'm popular here. Let me be short and sweet. Please stop adding to our debt. It is not a good thing. I've raised my son that debt of any sort is bad. So please stop adding to the debt.
Bill Zamzow, 356 Washington Street. Dave, you'll be happy to know I've got only about 3 pages here tonight. I'm not going to say much about the plans for the Granite Street addition. As far as I'm concerned, if it's such a great deal, let the owners redevelop themselves. Same along School Street. I do, however, have a problem with what I'm calling the Planet Fitness chunk of the addition. Key among them is the city recently ended up, as expected, on the losing end of Jalkut v. City of Quincy over the administration's illegal seizing of the control of the land underneath the Adams Academy property. With the blessing of this body, by the way,
in spite of the fact that there are about 5 trial court, Supreme Judicial Court opinions, rulings, and other such, and even a damning advisory by the Chief Justice of the SJC, all of which made it clear that the city did not own that land. To this illegal land grab, might I remind you that John Adams was among the most vociferous among the colonials over the Crown seizing private property, and yet here we are, care of Mayor Koch, disregard of multiple court orders and applicable law. At this point, while shoes are yet to drop, formally drop that is, the city is now looking at probably finding itself on the losing end of a $15 to $20 million or greater claim by the Adams Fund if it pursues punitive damages, and even more yet is possible if the mayor opts to drag things out via some new lost cause, to taking out his frustration on schoolgirls over his doomed and now failed plan to take the land. In turn, this body would thus be well advised, if not also malfeasant, to move forward on this particular part of the Part 6 URDP edition, absent a resolution to things regarding the Adams Academy property, including who will be paying for the land, development of a proper plan for the proposed looking to be solidly into 9 figures Adams Museum proposal, who's going to fund it, as well as public disclosure about what private, not-for-profit funding the mayor is trying to develop, either altered third parties or whatever. Accordingly, absent first undertaking these only proper first steps, blessing this proposal to expand the URDP and what I'm calling the Planet Fitness parcel, is going full speed ahead without any proper sense of what all things are going to cost and who's paying for what and so forth. That's a disaster. Simply holding up the matter until, say, next fall, or maybe a little longer until further review and consideration is not only prudent, such as the only proper course of action. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. John Rutherford, 62 Grunwall Road. Haven't been up there for a while. I missed everyone. Wondering where I've been. I went back to school, so I was in a class last semester, and I'm taking 2 classes this semester at UMass Lowell. So, just listen to some of the other people speak. I do have a finance background, so I mean, it's, and when you look at all these numbers, it's all about new growth. We've been growing the city for so long. This is one of the last steps that we're trying to do. You can't look at a project one parcel at a time. This is basically sort of supply side economics at its best. We're investing in the city, and we're going to get investors to come back and invest in the city also. So it's a win-win for everybody. It should be a joyous time. I mean, we've done a great job. I've been home watching the meetings. You kind of let Mrs. Amzow go off a little bit on the last meeting, a couple days ago. But, I just wanted to get my 2 cents in and not kind of go off key here. I know the topic is about the URDP, and I'm 100% in favor of it. We definitely need to do this. The new growth that we're going to get is 100% needed. And you also think of the tax base that's coming in. They're going to spend more money on meals tax. They're also going to spend more money on cannabis tax. They're going to spend more money on liquor tax. It's all about getting new tax base into the city, and the way we get new tax base is with new growth. And for some reason, the new growth is hard for other people to understand, but Mayor Koch completely does understand it. And because of all the new growth we're doing in Quincy, we're going to be one of the cities that is going to succeed in the future. When it comes to approving, pay for everyone, I think everyone does a great job. Everyone on the 3rd floor, not only of this building, but also on the 3rd floor of Coddington, they do a great job. But you know who even does a better job? The people on the 2nd floor and the people on the 1st floor. We have some of the greatest people that work in this city, and everyone deserves a raise. I mean, prices are going up. I was looking at a couple things. Lou Cornett, he barely plays on the Celtics. He makes $2.4 million. That's a lot of money. The 4 Celtics, who are the main Celtics, Tatum makes 32, Brown makes 31, Porzingis makes 36, and Holiday makes 36. So we're talking about, you know, giving our mayor, who runs a great city, less than 1% of what those Celtics make. And, you know, just for a couple other numbers, Charlie Baker's making $3 million running the NCAA. He was a past politician. Another past politician is Marty Welsh, who's making $3 million also. I'm not sure where they came up with that number. Maybe had the same guy, okay? But the other, okay. Well, my other main point is just Marty Meehan's making $900,000 too. So, you know, look at what the people make at the University of Massachusetts, which is where I'm going to school now, and they're making a lot of money. So the main point is we got to keep the people who are good people here. Mayor Koch has started a project. We want to make sure he's here to finish it. Thank you. I support this project.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford. Glad to have you back. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. I'll end the public hearing at, what's that? 6:57? Yes. And we'll adjourn for a minute or so, and I'll start up the Finance Committee meeting. Good evening again. It's about 6:59. I'd like to open up the Finance Committee Subcommittee meeting this evening. Folks, there's 3 items that are on the agenda. The appropriation for $157 million for district improvement financing, urban revitalization and development plan, and Amendment 6, which was just a subject that was discussed in the public hearing, and an amendment to Fox Rock Properties Quincy Development LLC Land Disposition Agreement. Before I begin on the first item on the agenda, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Walker for a few words, and then we'll get to the subject matter. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought it would be productive if I spent a few minutes sort of bringing back another overview, a smaller overview, and then potentially answering a few of the questions that we've gotten from this body in the interim between the original presentation and tonight on these items, just to bring everyone up to speed. And those conversations we've had over the course of the last 3 weeks have been quite productive. So we're certainly appreciative of that and appreciative of the feedback the public continues to provide on what cannot possibly be considered anything other than a major success for everyone in this room, this body, the mayor, all of the people of this community who have decided that they were going to, once and for all, take back their downtown and do something very special with it. And then we're continuing that progress as we go forward tonight. So the first item, as Mr. Chairman mentioned to you tonight, is the budget, the DIF budget, District Improvement Financing Budget. As we mentioned in our original presentation, this DIF budget will primarily finance 2 public parking garages. 2 public parking garages that facilitate several $100 million in private development. And in particular, that will facilitate a major medical office facility in the heart of downtown and another mixed-use housing and retail component in the downtown, including a specialty grocer. 2 of the things that from the beginning of this planning process, going back many, many years now, when we asked folks what do they want in the downtown, medical office services and a grocer were the 2 things that came up. Definitely, perhaps the top 2, but definitely top 5. When it comes to the financing, Mr. Mason and the team, Craig Seymour from RKG, made a very methodical presentation laying out exactly how this money is going to be financed, how it's going to be funded over the years, and the revenue that we're going to see over the years. The question that this body always asks, and rightfully so, because we've been saying it from the very beginning, does the downtown continue to pay for itself? And it does. Mr. Mason's here to answer any questions you may have relative to that. We thought he showed very clearly that the DIF revenue will continue to fund the downtown development. Now, we're going to face a number of years where the year-to-year, and Councilor Lang in particular brought this up, where the year-to-year debt service over the revenue, it might get a little bit higher on the debt service side. But we have a mechanism in place, and we're working through municipal finance right now on how we formalize that mechanism, where those excess revenues that we're getting, even today, from the tax revenue being produced in the new downtown, will be used to offset any increased costs that we're going to have on the debt service in those years that Mr. Mason outlined. Those things coupled with, as I mentioned in my first opening, the new parking revenue and other sources of revenue, we remain confident that the downtown will pay for itself. And the proof is in the pudding. We've seen the proof to date. It is working. We need to continue to push forward. The second item is the Sixth Amendment to the Urban Redevelopment Plan. Before you tonight, and as we did in the original presentation, this is the framework. This is sort of the engine that makes it all work. In this exercise is largely a mapping exercise because of the success we've had, because of the progress we've made. We're expanding the map to include a number of different properties. I want to be very clear on a couple of things that have come up through this body on how the city purchases and sells property when it comes into urban renewal. First, when it comes to eminent domain and urban renewal, there's nothing in this urban redevelopment amendment that approves, calls out, or signs off on any land acquisition or eminent domain taking. Again, it is a framework. Any purchase, any sale, any eminent domain taking has to be back before this body and fully vetted by you. So what you see in front of you as part of the remapping exercise is just that. It's a remapping exercise that expands the opportunity that exists. What that opportunity realistically wants to be and in the end wants to be, that's what's going to shake out over the next several years. In terms of disposition and acquisition of property, again, a question came up relative to when we purchase property as a city and then sell it for private development. The suggestion was, and it's a fair question, relative to why is the city taking such a big loss on some of these properties? Specifically, reference was made to what we're calling the specialty grocer parcel on the south side of the bridge, that the suggestion was made that the city paid $18 million for site acquisition in that area, and according to the LDA that this body approved relatively recently, is only getting $7.5 million in return. This body has the appraisals for that property. The reason for the difference in those two numbers is that the city is only selling a portion of that property. A large bulk of that property south of the bridge, as approved by the LDA in this body and what's before this body tonight, is for a public parking garage. We're not going to be disposing of that property. We're not selling that property. So that's one of the questions that came up, and I just hope that be a little bit, provide a little clarity on that. Before you tonight also, over the last few days, as this body knows, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities at the state level has to sign off on any urban redevelopment plan. They have been partners with us from the very beginning, partners with our Planning and Community Development Office. You have in front of you a 4 or 5 page summary of their comments on what's in the plan. As you go through it, you'll see there's nothing of substance, major substance, a major change or anything like that. They didn't look at anything and say, this is not good. It's technical, minor in nature, but those changes are in front of you. They have been incorporated into the draft that you folks all have. And the team is here ready to answer any questions you may have on that memorandum from the state. Again, they're not looking to, they're looking to work with us. And you'll see from these comments, they're proactive in nature, not reactive, not critical in any way. The third item on the agenda tonight is a minor technical revision. The second minor technical revision we've done in the last several months. This body approved one in February for the Fox Rock LDA that will activate the medical office building. It's almost identical in reasoning to the previous changes approved by this body earlier this year. Essentially making sure that the legal documents all line up with what the plans are in place. As time goes by, plans evolve, things change, and the lawyers advise strongly that when those plans change and they become real, that we need to make a few minor technical revisions. In this particular case, it relates to the fact that a public parking garage is part of that site. Now, when earlier iterations It didn't specifically call out a public parking garage, so it's belts and suspenders. There is a fourth item that I will speak about when Finance Committee reconvenes. That's on your regular agenda, but it's not properly before this committee right now. So we would let that go until the Finance Committee reconvenes. Before we open up to questions, just want to thank our entire team that's here tonight. Everyone's here available at your disposal to answer questions. We have Holly Roach and Joe Shea from Granite City Partners. Of course, our Planning and Community Development Director, Jim Fatsi, Deputy Director, Rob Stevens, Joe King, Principal Planner, Jeff Fasher from BSC Group, been instrumental in our urban renewal planning over the years, Sean Nahill and Brian Golden from Keegan Warland, part of our legal team, Bill Geary, Special Counsel to the Mayor, Eric Mason, and Rick Kosha from the Municipal Finance Department. I do see Craig Seymour from RKG Associates is here as well. And we have our private development partners here as well, DJ McKinnon from Atlantic Development, and I see the team from Fox Rock Properties in the room as well. Again, thank you all very much. I hope that wasn't too much, but I wanted to sort of refresh everyone where we were from the last meeting and open it up to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Walkerman, thank you, and it wasn't too much. I think, we've received emails, we've talked to folks. I know that the body has discussed things with Mr. Mason and the team and all the names you had just reeled off. So there's been plenty of conversations outside of the chamber with the individuals to make sure we get it right. Just to repeat, this is a $157 million district improvement financing bond, and this is for 2 parking garages the city will own, along with the infrastructure, the improvements that are needed for those garages. So that's what's in front of us right now. Chair recognizes Councilor DeBona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've waited a long time to get to this point. I've been sitting up here since 2016. I'm in my 9th year of being a counselor, so I remember when the West of Chestnut was just coming up with steel, and we didn't know how the downtown was going to look. Well, now you can see and feel it and touch it and go to, farmers markets and all different type of things that are going on that side of the city, that side of the downtown, by the Fours, the garage, the O'Connell building, the one Chestnut Place, the revitalization of that part. Then what about the Ross lot? What about the Ross garage? I grew up here, so I remember that Ross garage and all the little establishments is right around it. And, this is the reason why we actually, the hospital, this is where the medical use is going to go in, just to the side of the General Bridge. And then for many years, I listened to these folks say, the bridge to nowhere, the bridge to nowhere. That's the infrastructure that we put in place for a night like tonight. This was what we were waiting for. Okay, Fox Rock went out, they found a provider, they found BI, Beth Israel. They went out and found somebody that's going to put that medical use in there. They're going to need a garage during the day. At night, folks that want to frequent the restaurants can use the parking garage. Atlantic Development, DJ McKinnon. I asked him about North Quincy. I says, can you get us a Target? Went out and found us a Target. It's going really well over there on the North Quincy side. He's finding a specialty grocer now. And time is of the essence. We don't take our chance to take this grocer, Braintree will take it. There's already one in Hingham. There's already one in Needham. It's all about geographical area. Braintree will take it if we don't take it. So we've come a long way. We need the 2 garages. And look at all the infrastructure that we've done to this point. General's Park, the General's Bridge, all the underneath infrastructure on top of what we need to do. But as you know, you're reading the papers about Stewart Healthcare, what has happened with that. Did we know that back then? We kind of did. Look what happened. It hit the papers pretty good, pretty hard in the last couple weeks. So I think the administration, I think this city council has been waiting a long time to get to this point. This is the other side of the downtown that's still empty. There still has to be revitalized. And we have everybody at the table, all the stakeholders are here, most of them are here tonight. And we want to move forward. I want to move Quincy forward in the right direction. And it's going to cost some funding, it's going to cost money. That's how this works. You know, you have to make an investment. It's called an investment. You put money into an investment, you get something in return. And this will be for generations long after we live here. It might outdate us, but it's for the next generation of the folks. Hopefully my children, your children, our children's children, and hopefully these structures will stay up there for a very long time. But I think we've talked about this quite a bit, and I've been waiting for the table. We had a little hiccup with COVID in the last 4 years, and the stakeholders still continue to drive and drive and drive to get us to the goal line, and here we are tonight. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for the $157 million to be approved. I make that in the form of a motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilor DeBona for the $157 million for the DIF financing. On the motion, Councilor Yang?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, just because folks are here, so I want to just make sure to utilize their time and intelligence while we've got them. I have been looking at terms like DIF and URTP for 9 years now, but can always use a refresher with being educated with something like this, especially when there's such a long-lasting impact. So Eric, I'm staring at you because I'd like to start with you. Now, just if I could preface this by saying, I know that when you're passionate about something, you dive like super into the weeds on it. And so before you start, if you could just sort of highline, walk through this DIF system, right? This is a tool essentially that is made available to municipalities in the state. It's something we chose to take advantage of to get us to this point, right? So can you just, again, sort of top line walk us through what this tool is, you know, how it's made available to us, and again, you know, how it is quote unquote paying for itself?
Yeah, absolutely, Counselor. I do feel kind of aged a little bit because this is my same 9th year doing this. And DIF is an exceptionally rare tool used in the state. So I have a lot of experience in application on it, greater than I think, you know, people who may have 37, 40 years experience in here. Because if you're not in a municipality that uses Chapter 40Q, it's like any other part of the law if you don't use it.
And 40Q is?
40Q is the DIF.
Thank you.
So I would defer to the attorneys on the legal side, but the application in the municipal finance is baseline growth. So what happens is you start with a set of parcels, and in the case of the city of Quincy, that's 2006, and you take all those parcels that make up the downtown, make up the DIF district, and what we do is we take every year, we grow all those parcels at the same rate the rest of the city does. And then we pay a third party, RKG, they come in and say, what's the total market value of all those properties? And the difference between how much the DIF grew, those parcels, at the rate the rest of the city did, they subtract that from how much the total value is worth. And that total value is called DIF revenue. And that DIF revenue is then converted and analyzed by RKG and third parties to create the DIF bonding capacity. And then that's how we make those decisions. And
Can I just pause there for a second? So just again, just to be clear, right? Because again, I want to make sure that I'm always understanding this and not losing track of that. We're looking at these parcels back in 2006 and saying, okay, what is the value of these parcels and the taxes that will be generated as is if nothing is improved upon?
Correct.
That produces a number, right? And then we go ahead and say, okay, if we start doing infrastructure improvements, we start bringing in new businesses, et cetera, whatever it might be, it produces this number. And that difference is what we're able to bond against, correct?
With one caveat, that baseline 2006 is growing with the rest of the city.
Sure.
So it's only that on top of it. So it's not even like we're taking the baseline growth. We're only taking the extra growth and devoting it towards tax revenue.
Okay, and based off of the revenues that have been generated since then, is it over what we're projected or under?
It's about on pace with it. A 20-year model can become kind of, it's hard to project those types of revenues over 20 years. But that's this body, it's, as you certainly know, Counselor, being involved in a lot of these, is that individual deliberation every time we go back. So we refresh the model, we relook at that outlook, and try our best to put together packages like this to try and paint the best picture we can, or to give the most information across there. So it's constantly being updated.
Okay.
The model is updated annually around tax rate setting time.
Okay, I just want to make sure because again, believe that we're all approaching it this way, and I've seen from history that you approach it this way too, that we're always going to be fiscally conservative. We're not going to overestimate and say, let's shoot for the moon and just expect that to happen, right? We're always going to sort of underestimate, be conservative, and say, well, maybe we won't hit that growth, right? And so the funds that you're looking at to, again, project out this revenue and say, this is what we think is going to come in to cover it, that is already coming in at a conservative number, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And I saw some of the discourse on this asking about error terms. In Appendix A in here, which has all the financial modeling, there's error terms on there. It's multilinear regression and RDD, which are both very well-respected econometrical approaches to analyzing this, but we do work also within error terms too.
Yep, okay, thank you. No, I thought that was the case. Again, that's my understanding as I stated before you today, but again, given the fact that you were here, I just wanted to ask you up to clarify and make sure I wasn't missing anything. So thank you for your time. The second question I had, again, is just a clarifying question, will be to Mr. Fatsis, if I could, just about the process with the takings, right? And so, my understanding was back in 2006, this conversation started with, a certain area of the downtown. My understanding and experience of that was a building that was then taken in 2015 that I didn't vote on because our families had businesses there, right? But we're talking 9 years from the time that the map was approved, right, to say this is the area, and then 9 years later is when the taking finally happened. And so I just want to, again, make sure I'm understanding this correctly to Mr. Walker's point, that even if a map area is approved, any individual land taking still on its own has to be a formal discussion, correct?
That is
similar to what it was back in 2015.
Yeah, that is correct. And taking is a very, very detailed process. Should a piece of property be taken, the owners of that property are provided with multiple appraisals. The activity on that property that currently exists has to be looked at. The individuals that are in those properties also may or may not be, depending on whether they wish to stay or not. Some companies, are entitled to a basic return. If they are moving, those expenses are considered. This is all done by the state and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We don't pick numbers. These all have to be qualified numbers, and it's a very, very clear process for the reasons that, values, we can't decide what values are. Certified, licensed appraisals are made on these properties.
Yeah, I mean, one of the recommendations that came in from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities from the state to us was about the relocation, saying that we have to retain services of a relocation firm, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, including assistance in finding alternative sites, identifying relevant zoning issues, conducting interviews, reviewing moving cost estimates, et cetera. So there's quite an extensive process that comes down from recommendations from the state as well. And again, from what I remember, it was an extensive, a conversation that before anything had happened. And that was back in 2015 though. So I just want to make sure that we're still abiding by that process, that nothing happens by saying this is the area, right? Like each individual location still has to be considered, if at all, right? This is just merely looking at the map
And that's
the
an
lines,
important,
correct?
an important piece. When we do a map, again, we did one for 20 years. Now we're trying to expand and do another 20 years. We look at all the property that we put before you. You look at that property, and some of those properties will never be touched because there's no need to. Other properties that are decadent and falling apart, those are the properties we'd like to do something with. And the manner in which we go about this process is extremely public, very, very clear. And the timing on this is something where, someone may think that we're going to run in and grab this property. Well, we don't have an unlimited checkbook. We look at the properties that are within the DIF district, and many determinations are made. In many cases, the private owners of those properties say, listen, I'm watching what's going on in Quincy Center. And all boats rise with the tide. And it might be time for me to put some more money into my property myself and get together with somebody else. In some cases, more than one property are going to get together with another property and become a much more valuable asset for the owners of those properties, and then they move forward like any other business transaction.
Yeah,
But
no,
the-
again, that's what I remember being the case, and that leads me to my last question, if I could. I mean to interrupt you, it's just you answer my question
No,
here. And
that's
I know
great.
when you're passionate about something, again, I think we all sort of like deep dive into it a little bit, but
Alrighty.
as you know, right, the information piece is the biggest thing. I think with folks who either live in the area, work in the area, own property in the area, or just even in Quincy in general or outside of Quincy, I mean, like if people from any walk of life, right, have questions, updates, timelines, et cetera. You've already reiterated, but I'd like for you to, again, if you could, that folks can reach out directly to your office and see where things are, even for us, right? Like if I come to you 3 weeks or 3 months from now and say, hey, how's it going? What's going on with these properties, right? What's the update? What's new? I mean, we can go directly to your office, look at those maps, have those conversations with you all, right? So we want to encourage folks to reach out directly to your office. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I spoke to somebody in the city today that was actually hoping that we were going to take their property. I spoke to somebody else who is aware of these cases, has watched all the meetings, and said, you know, do you have timing on this? And I said, well, there's a possibility within 20 years there might be interest in your property by the city, but there may be many other things that happen before that. You may come up with an answer yourself. So that's really what this is. We're identifying a map. We're identifying the boundaries. That's what we're doing. And there is no, no predisposition on any properties unless it is made public, made clear, and conversations are had with the building owners and the folks that are in those buildings.
Okay, thank you. I just want to note that I know that for folks who do want to reach out to you, that interpretation services will also be available. I mean, we have them here tonight because your department runs it and makes it available. So thank you for doing that and being accessible for information requests that come in to people who speak all languages. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Chair recognizes Counselor Ash.
Director Fatsis, if I may bother you, sorry.
Counselor.
Thank you for the presentation. I too, differing temperaments from business owners. One business owner in particular is saying, hey, who's going to come here and when is this happening? And, you know, when can I get to the closing table, quite honestly? And then another business says, I don't know what's going on, and I happen to like my place and I don't want anything to happen. And it's important for, I think, the public to know that those are two genuine recent experiences that I've had, at least. But if I could, I think it might be helpful for the public to understand why we need to vote on this amendment if each of the properties are going to then be considered down the line anyway. This overlay district. I know I personally happen to like the idea of some of these stretches, these proposals, and other ones not so much. If we are going to be looking at each parcel individually, why this first step now? And I think it'd be good if the public could maybe hear that answer.
Sure. Well, it's actually the sixth step that you're seeing, and that's important to note. As we progress in the plan, and as the city grows, there are investors that may come forward and be interested in a piece of property and be willing to make an offer on that property. But that property, generally speaking, there's no guarantee that the city would want to take those properties, but they are in a geographic area which is laid out on the maps throughout Quincy Center. As you all look at that map, you recognize that it encompasses Quincy Center. It's really the area that we've identified. You can't start and just go out there and take all this property. There's no money for that. There needs to be truth. Is that people want these properties. People want to take advantage of the opportunity to invest in the city of Quincy. So as you pointed out, some of these properties that are in the district are just in the district. There'd be no activity there at those properties. Some are more obvious and I think that's the word I would use. There are some properties that, quite frankly, the city's properties. When we started, we had 2 decadent parking lots. They were brutal. The Ross lot was falling down. Anybody that parked in it, you went into that lot, you weren't real happy with it, and so those were where we started. We started with our own property, and that was how this started as a process. Then there are folks that are close to the individual properties that have been improved that said, boy, I'd like to get on this bandwagon. I see what's going on around me. And that is up to the individual. Many times people are going to get together privately and say, you know, I see that there are folks that are willing to invest in the city of Quincy. As the plan said earlier, you know, this is really intended for the city to have a tool in the event that somebody does not want to move forward and just wants to sit on top of the property and it's decadent and it's falling down. There are safety issues. There are buildings that we've seen in the city that had, you know, suffered tragic fires and things of that nature. Well, that's pretty easy. That's a good property to probably be improved. Other folks, their businesses have reached the end of their natural life, and the folks that own the business want to move on and want to see, you know, if they could get an investment. In many cases, they would like to increase the massing on the site. In Quincy Center, you can go up to 15 stories, 20 stories with a special permit. It doesn't happen every day. It's a very expensive process. Peter O'Connell's project comes to mind. It's 15 stories. It's the tallest building south of Boston on the entire South Shore. It became an area that was available. If you remember what was in that site before, it was a small block of stores, and the folks in those stores recognized that there was an opportunity there for them, in some cases, to either end their business there in that site and go somewhere else, and someone stepped in and said, I want to invest in this property. That's what urban renewal looks for. It's the basic principle. Anything else more specific that you want?
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fatsis. At this point, I'm going to recess to finance so we can open the city council meeting, and then we'll be right back.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, May 20th, 2024 City Council meeting. Mr. Clerk.
How many times is this going to happen today?
Force of habit. Please call the roll.
Absolutely. Councilor Ash. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Devine. Councilor DeBona. Councilor Harris. Councilor Liang. Councilor McCarthy. Councilor Minton. President Kane.
Present. Please stand for a moment of silence. Please observe this moment as you will. Please turn to the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, please read the open meeting law.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, first item on the agenda.
First item on the agenda, Mr. President, Council Order 2002-054. It's an order amendment to the Atlantic Realty Land Disposition Agreement.
President recognizes Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to move that to Finance Committee.
Motion to move to finance made by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor DeBona. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Clerk, next item.
Next item, Mr. President, 2024-055. It's an ordinance amending.
Motion to waive the reading by Counselor Liang. Motion to move to Ordinance and Finance Committee, seconded by Counselor DeBona. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Did you have something? I'm sorry. Those opposed? Ayes have it on that last measure. The President recognizes Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Prior to committee referral on these two orders with the body's permission, I'll provide a little bit of context and rationale at the request of a couple of members of this body. Again, looking forward to a full discussion within the committee setting at the appropriate time. As you'll see, the $285,000 salary figure proposed for the mayor is below the lowest range that was presented to this body through the work of the Dormanson Compensation Study. We'll obviously dive a little bit deeper into this during committee deliberations. We believe the number strikes a balance between the analysis provided by that study and some straight comparatives with similar communities and positions around the greater Boston area and our region as a whole. It will be higher in some places than some places to start. That won't last long based upon what we've seen in the marketplace. It will be lower to start than a number of places, including the City of Cambridge, City Manager, and the Plymouth Town Manager position. I'd like to add a piece of the thinking that hasn't really been discussed to date, and that's the future. The proposal is not strictly about raising the salary of our current mayor for the first time in a decade, although that is true. It's about raising the salary of the position of mayor to an appropriate place to ensure that when the time comes, the salary is enough to attract and retain experienced, talented, committed, passionate individuals to the position. Nobody gets into public service and elected office for that banner, and you all well know that, for the money. But we should not have a system that actively dissuades people from participating because salaries are far undervalued. Same argument applies to the second order in your agenda, raising the council salary to $47,500. Again, this will be the first adjustment for this body in over a decade and represents what the administration believes is a fair, adequate compensation for what you all do every day. I look forward to having this discussion in committee.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Mr. Clerk, next item on the agenda, please.
Next item is Council Order 2024-056.
Motion to waive the reading. Well, motion to waive the reading was Councilor Liang. I believe in the rules, if you want to make an objection, you need to make it.
You have to object during the reading.
Okay, motion withdrawn.
During the reading of it. And point of order, if you don't need to.
Okay. Do you want to speak on the motion?
Oh, I'm just going to say, you're not supposed to speak. I did objection. It's during the reading, and it goes to the next meeting.
Okay. Objection made by Councilor Harris on the measure. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next item, please.
Council Order 2024-057. It's an order of the increase to the cost of living COLA by the Quincy Retirement Board, Mr. President.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved made by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Campbell. On the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris. Yes. Councilor Liang.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor Minton.
Yes,
President Kane.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
That is it.
Okay, that is the conclusion of the regular agenda. Approval of meeting minutes. Motion approved made by Councilor Liang, seconded by Councilor DeBona. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, we'll recess the rest of this meeting and go back into finance.
7:37, I'd like to bring the Finance Committee back into order. We had just finished with Mr. Fatsy's. I had a motion from Councilor DeBona on the first order, 2024-038, $157 million for district improvement financing. Any other comments from councilors on this appropriation or any questions to the team? Councilor Devine.
I'd just like to say that about when I first moved to Quincy, this whole thing started, and there was a community meeting that I went to, and there was a company that was trying to get everything started, and I saw a rendering. And to fast forward, that rendering that they had looked very similar to what Kilroy Square looks like now, today. Not to simplify this, because it's extremely technical, but at the same time, it's simple. I see it like a chess game. Chess game is simple, but difficult at the same time. And I feel like we're at that point where you're about to make the move that you know is going to cinch the game for you, and that there'll be no other move that the other player can make to win. So it's very exciting, and I'd just like to say that Quincy's done an amazing job, and I'm glad I moved here 20 years ago. Thank you.
Councilors. So there's a motion for the one, Councilor Ash.
Is Mr. Mason still here? Sorry. What was that?
Rare for me to blend in.
There you go. So relative to some of the concerns that were voiced earlier tonight, do we have like payoff schedules, and have those been provided, or are they anywhere where they can be reviewed by the public?
Oh, absolutely. Some of them are included in our annual budgetary appropriation. We publish our debt book online that can be reviewed in. It's independently managed through Emma, which is a depository for all bond issuances. We even have past documentation that discusses when the diff, if the council can renew the diff for 2 10-year options. We even show what that would look like in terms of general fund debt. But I do want to note that the diff debt service is in the general fund already. It's part of our debt service. Additionally, if the diff does, if say the body chooses not to renew the diff revenue is general fund revenue by law, Chapter 40Q. I don't enjoy quoting law to an attorney, but it is part of the general fund. We don't have a special tax district. It's the calculations done within there. This is how 40Q works throughout the entire Commonwealth. So I've heard certainly some comments on that were a little perplexing to me. So if the body chooses not to renew that in 2036, well, yes, that debt service becomes part of the general fund. So does all the diff revenue, and cancels it out. The schedules remain valid. This is, as Councilor Devine mentioned, it is a complicated financial package. But part of providing the comprehensive review was to break it into those individual bonds to show that this does survive, whether the body chooses to renew the diff or not. It does survive through that, and every debt approach we've ever shown shows that. And it's available on the city municipal finance website. You can see our entire debt book. That's actually one of my favorite parts of my job, so I'm always happy to share it. But yes.
And right now the extension is to 2037. Is that correct?
That would be the end of the first, the original statute, or ordinance, I should say. And then you would have 2 options for 10 years after that, so you could go until 2057.
Okay. Thank you.
All set, Councilor?
Yes.
So we have a motion, Councilor DeBona. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Second item, 2024-039, the URDP and Amendment 6. Again, any councilors, any comments? I know we had just asked some of the questions to Mr. Fatsis and company, kind of a twofold there. But if any councilors have any questions on the URDP. If not, I'm entertain a motion if I have one. Motion to approve. Motion approved by Councilor Harris. Any comments on the motion? Motion by Councilor Harris. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Third item, 2024-040 order, amendment to Foxtrot Properties Quincy Development LLC, LDA. Motion approved by Councilor Harris. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And the ayes have it. Thank you. Fourth item, yeah. So we have one that was moved in the 2024-054. We have an order, was the first item on the council agenda that was moved into finance. The amendment to Atlantic Realty Land Disposition Agreement. I'll go to Mr. Walker for a little background on this, and then we can talk about it. And again, the team's here to ask questions. Mr. Walker.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. As noted in an email I sent to the body prior to the weekend, this is another minor technical revision to the LDA, this one relative to the Atlantic development proposal on the south side of the bridge. That is the housing, garage, grocer to be named later, development on that side. Essentially what this does is it provides the developer the opportunity, if it exists. He's currently working, the development team is currently working with some new partners, and they've brought some potential ideas to the table that could shift the property line a little bit from the public to the private to the public. Specifically, potentially wrapping the residential on the side of the General's Bridge that faces the bridge. The original proposal had no housing on that side. It was just the garage would front the bridge. You have before you a rough rendering, drawing of what that layout may look like if the development team decides that's the direction they want to go to. Again, this revision just allows the LDA to make those changes if necessary going forward. And obviously, the team is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Questions, Councilor Campbell?
I guess I just had a very quick question. How would this affect any timeline? No, I guess maybe, DJ, is this something that might fall into your lap? Just on as far as like the timing, if this is a change that you make, how would it affect timing and placement and so forth?
Okay, sure. DJ McKinnon from Atlantic Development. Really doesn't affect the timing. What we're looking at doing, we did the Abbey project. That project has a 1,200 car garage, which you don't see unless you look really carefully from the other side of the road. This would just give us the opportunity to make a bit of a shift in the plan as we looked at further refinement to include residential along the General's Bridge side and essentially shield that side of the garage. So it shouldn't affect the timing at all. It's just a little bit more fine tuning in the plan itself.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
One second, Councilor. Any other questions? I got a motion from Councilor Harris. Motion to approve. On the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. And I think that is it for the Finance Committee at 7:45. We'll go back to the council meeting. Thank you.
Okay, communications and reports from the mayor, other city officers, and boards. Seeing none, unfinished business and preceding meeting. Seeing none, we have reports of committees. We will start with finance.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. This evening, we had a public hearing first on the URDP, and also we had 4 items in the Finance Committee that I'm going to move for approval. First one is 2024-038, the appropriation for $157 million for district improvement financing. I put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor for the 2024-038 appropriation for $157,000. Motion approved by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor DeBona. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Liang. Yes. Councilor
Yes.
Councilor Minton. Yes. President Kane.
Yes.
Second item in the Finance Committee for approval, 2024-039 order, URDP and Amendment 6. I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion to approve made by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Harris. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris. Yes. Councilor Liang. Yes. Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor Minton. Yes. President Kane.
Yes.
Third item, 2024-040 order, amendment to Fox Rock Properties Quincy Development LLC, LDA. Put that in the form of a motion, Mr. President.
Motion to approve made by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Harris. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris. Yes. Councilor Liang. Yes. Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor Minton. Yes. President Kane.
Abstain, please. Thank you.
The last item, 2024-054, amendment to Atlantic Realty Land Disposition Agreement. I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion to approve made by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Harris. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Liang. Yes. Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor Minton. Yes. President Kane.
Yes.
That's it, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair McCarthy. Next, we will go to Ordinance Committee with Councilor Liang. Chair Liang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a traffic report, just one out of Ward 2, 2024-052. At all way stop signs on Main Street, intersecting with Summer Street. There's a positive recommendation out of committee. I'd like to put that in the form of a motion.
Motion to approve made by Councilor Liang, seconded by Councilor Devine. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Liang.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor Minton.
Yes.
President Kane.
Yes.
9 minutes.
Thank you. And just one more. So Council Order number 2024-045, recognizing Lunar New Year. 2 weeks ago, we held an ordinance committee meeting in which we were able to have a deliberation up here, and it was voted favorably out of committee with a positive recommendation. But before we go to a vote, if I could, we held on voting at the full council meeting because we wanted to make sure that the solicitor had ample time to recheck and check again and recheck again to make sure all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted to ensure that this is something that we can do under the purview of the legislators here in the city. And so if my colleagues will entertain me prior to it going to a vote, I'd like to ask our solicitor to just come up so that he can say it from his own mouth, just to set the record straight. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Timmons?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. I reviewed the amended ordinance. As you recall, the originally submitted ordinance I recommended should not be approved and had issues with. After studying the amended ordinance, I could find no impediment to voting on this ordinance. This is very different from the one that was submitted, which was looking to declare a municipal holiday, which is something that the state has the sole sovereign authority over. This is amended. I acknowledge the hard work of Councilor Liang with respect to that amendment, and after reviewing things, this is very much a matter of first impression in the Commonwealth, I'll say that. But there are no impediments to the body voting on it this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Thank you, Mr. President. So again, with that, I'd like to make a motion, please, to approve.
Motion approved by Councilor Liang, seconded by Councilor Harris. And anything on the motion? Councilor DeBona?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just as we have Solicitor Timmons here, just to elaborate a little bit on what he just said, this body and Councilor Liang started off with trying to make this a holiday throughout the city, and came into some roadblocks because the state does not recognize this in our municipality throughout the state. Is that correct?
Well, I might phrase it a little differently. The municipal authority to declare a holiday, a local holiday, it doesn't exist. It was not granted by the state to the municipalities. There are a couple of examples of holidays, like people talk about Evacuation Day and Bunker Hill Day. Those are county-wide holidays. They have their origins in the times when they were passed, and some of that activity predated what's called the Home Rule Amendment. So without getting into like a nuanced discussion about mass constitutional law, I'll just tell you that the original proposal for a municipal holiday was beyond the authority of this body. Quincy can't grant municipal holidays.
That really sums it up, Solicitor Timmons, because I think the public did not know all this information. I think some of the members of the school committee did not know that information. So with you standing up here tonight and letting the public know that that was the original plan, and it went into making it a holiday for the schools, is that correct?
Yes, and prior to...
That is, hold on, that is a municipal building. The schools, right? Quincy Public Schools is considered a municipal building under the jurisdiction of the city of Quincy.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think the school department's a department within the city. But it didn't have to do with control, because that spawns another issue, is who has control over the grounds and buildings within the schools. There's been a perception that that might be the school committee authority, but that too was amended in 1993. And it's more school-centered, school-focused as far as control. So there is a question of control, but what Councilor Liang did, to her credit, she pushed back hard relative to her desire for the municipal holiday, and wasn't happy with the discussion that we had. But then when we talked it through, and she explained what her goals were, that's when she arrived at this amendment. So in reviewing this amendment, which I promised her I would do, I could find no impediment to the way this is worded.
Thank you, Solicitor Timmons. It really just gets the public to understand exactly where we're at. So I'm in full support of this. I was in support of it last 2 weeks ago when we had the vote, and I'll be in support of it tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, so we have motion on the floor, motion approved by Councilor Liang, seconded by Councilor Harris. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris. Yes. Councilor Liang.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor Minton. Yes. President Kane.
Yes. Thank you very much.
If I could just really quickly, this is, I couldn't ask for a better way to wrap up our final meeting of API Heritage Month. I know that each and every single one of you, from very intense, long conversations, put a lot of thought into this in a way that was very deliberate, explored all options, explored all sides, but ultimately, this is a decision that you came to, and I just cannot personally, I already shed my tears at the last meeting, so I don't want to get emotional, I'll spare all of you, but really, truly, just can't say thank you enough, so just thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Yang, for your commitment and your courage in making this happen. Public Works Committee.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilor Harris.
This evening, we held a public hearing, 2024-047, Grand Ole location, National Grid, gas and main replacement, Lynn Street, Brockton Ave, and Empire Street. Positive recommendation from the Public Works Committee.
Motion approved, Councilor Harris, seconded by Councilor DeBona. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Liang.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor Minton.
Yes.
President Kane.
Yes. Is that all, Chair?
We have one more, 2024-053, Grand Ole location, National Grid, Connington Street, Faxon Ave to Southern Artery. Positive recommendation.
Okay, motion approved made by Councilor Harris, seconded by Councilor DeBona. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Devine. Yes. Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Liang.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor Minton.
Yes.
President Kane.
Yes. Chair Harris, all set?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrance. President recognizes Councilor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Ash for allowing me to kind of start the ball here rolling, and I know that this affects Councilor DeBona, a very great man. We lost last week, May 7th, John Ford from Quincy Point. He's a lifelong resident of Quincy Point and really a true gentleman. And I don't even know where to begin for Johnny. He was a lifelong Quincy Point resident, Quincy High School president, football player, graduated in 1973, and just an all-around wonderful guy. He was a member of the Glaziers and Glassworkers, Local 1044, retired 11 years ago after working there for 35 years. Johnny was married to the love of his life, Debbie, for 45 years, and they actually have been together since First Communion, which is amazing if you think about that. He's 70 years old, and they were first partners back in First Communion. So they had two amazing kids, Joanna and JT. Joanna was absolutely the apple of his eye, and his riding partner on their Harley Davidsons. When they would have JT's fun run, they would go over and be together on that. But I think if you gave Johnny the option, he would love to be known as just JT's dad. JT had emotional and speech issues, and he was really just he had mental and physical challenges that really weren't very easily overcome. But Fordy made sure that JT was the center of all his emotion and all his happiness, because he was someone that he wanted to be part of everyday life. And this was pointed out in Joanna's eulogy that she did on his funeral last week, and it was really special to know that there were kids that would come back and say that JT was their teammate in football, and I think Johnny's the reason why that happened. He made him a huge part of it. He was from a tremendous family, one of 6 siblings, and was named Co-Pigskin Gala Man of the Year in 2023 with his 22, with his brother Tommy. And over 40 years ago, before JT was born, he started the South Shore Children's Fund, and that was a way for them to raise money to bring in kids from DSS who weren't lucky enough to have presents during Christmas. And Johnny raised thousands of dollars over his time and treated kids to amazing holiday season tributes and Christmas things. It was really amazing. He actually taught me a lot. Some of the phrases that he used. If you look good, you play good. I thought that was him, but it was actually Deion Sanders that said that. Cheerleaders are athletes and work just as hard as any football player. He was adamant about that. He made sure that the cheerleaders got everything that the football players got during Quincy Point Panthers, and that Frozen Freddy heals all injuries for all the, and that the Campbell brothers aren't funny. That was an inside joke that we had there, but I had to leave that in there. But the most impactful advice that he gave me, I was probably 22 years old. I had just completed my first Santa's Elves South Shore Children's Fund event, and I was just in awe watching people experience what they experienced. And I said, geez, I can't believe how thankful people must be for your kindness. And he said it to me that without hesitation. He said, if you're in it for the thank you, you're in it for the wrong reasons. And I've used that as a guiding principle and perspective for my entire life since then. It's been a source of motivation in my check and balance over the years, and I have Fordy to thank for that. Probably the best line from Joanna's eulogy came from one of Johnny's friends who said, 100 men lost their best friend, and that was absolutely what Johnny was to so many. He was the best friend to everybody he met, and he was someone that just made you want to be a better person. I just want to rest in peace, Johnny. You'll be missed but never forgotten.
Thank you, Councilor Campbell. The President recognizes Councilor Ash.
If I could just follow up, Councilor Campbell, great job memorializing the staple of the Ford family. You don't grow up in Quincy Point or even go to Quincy Point, I don't think, without running into one of the many Fords. And Mr. John Ford being the staple and certainly a focal point to the huge family. The send-off last week was beautiful, well-deserved, and really a testament to the legacy that he will leave in the area. Coached the Panthers for quite a while, South Shore Children's Fund, JT's Fun Run, He's going to certainly be missed in the neighborhood. And I did just want to say, if I figured it would be good to state this, if anybody would like to send donations to the family, those can be made out to the John T. Ford 2017 Supplemental Needs Trust, 68 Baxter Avenue. JT does suffer from some significant disabilities, so I know that the family in the long term would really appreciate, of course, keeping them all in your prayers and thoughts in this difficult time, and I certainly appreciate that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ash. Councilor DeBona.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to also send condolences to the Craig family. Bobby Craig passed away, a former firefighter for 24-plus years, and a staple at Louis and Off the Hook down the neck, down in McCarthy land down there. He was 84 years old, and he was still going in there up until the last few weeks, to be honest with you. And we want to send our greatest condolences to the Craig family, 4 sons, a lot of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and he'll be definitely missed throughout the Halls Neck area, going to his wake the other day and his burial. So, you know, Bobby was a staple of that area, and he was happy after the pandemic that Louis got reopened to be Off the Hook, and he was still down there. He's got his little area where he has his Miller Lights and his stool, and it was a really nice send-off, and it really affected a lot of people throughout the city of Quincy. So my condolences to the entire family, the Craig family.
Thank you, Councilor DeBona. Okay. Motions, orders, and resolutions. President recognizes Councilor Harris.
Hi, thank you. I just want to mention that over the next 2 meetings, the next meeting, I'll be setting up 2 resolutions, some serious stuff that has just come to my ward, and I know that that it has to be addressed. I've tried to get together with the folks involved. I've met with, the first item will be about living conditions at a certain, over in Marina Bay, at a certain apartment complex where, as the chairman of the public safety, as the chairman of public, veterans, if there are any veterans there, and environmental and public health, being the chairman of those 3 committees, I find it very necessary with the emails that I've received, and actually, all I can say is that I've spoken with Representative Ayers, who it involves mold, which in Massachusetts, if you can believe it, in this state, we do not have any regulations on mold. And New Hampshire and Maine have it. We don't. So I can't figure that one out. But I know that I think that it's going to be, we're going to bring forward some, hopefully, a law into the state with the help of our state delegation to address that. When I hear that there are children, because of water damage, and especially children and actually adults being ill, and I hear things that just doesn't make sense when it comes to the management of that building. Somebody has to step in, and unfortunately, it was laid on me, and I cannot be silent, and I will bring it forward in front of this body. And, you know, we have 3 at-large councilors that I truly would hope for support, as well as the other ward councilors where I would support you in a similar matter. it's, you know, I just think that we need to get to the bottom of it. And if this is the only way I can get to the bottom of it, because I really don't have any other luck with this, I'm going to do it through this body and, you know, let it be put on record. The second item.
Council, are you formally submitting resolutions tonight, or will these be?
No,
put on
it'll be
future
for the
agendas?
next. I'm just, as a resolution, we've done this before, folks have done it before on this body, where I'm kind of trying to give folks a heads up that the next two meetings aren't like we're in and out, because these will have public hearings. And I know that I'll probably have to do it in the next meeting, so there's a public hearing on our last meeting. But we need to, the resolution, it'll need that to make sure that we get some type of response one way or another for folks that are really desperate. And it's the only, I'm desperate, so this is where I'm at.
Okay.
I'm coming to this body that we're here for the people. And this is important. And the second one is I'm not gonna do, because the first one is so important. I'm frustrated with the second thing when it comes to private roads. We all have it. I'm sure we all have private roads that can't get fixed. And I think the problem is with ward councilors and at-large councilors is people call us, and our answer is it's not allowed. And I think we need to educate.
Point of clarification, just,
Yeah.
so typically, if this was on the agenda, we would discuss this at length, so.
Exactly.
I
So I'm not,
appreciate
I'm just
that you'll
saying.
submit this for the next council
Exactly
meeting's
right.
agenda.
That's all I was trying to do, is just make sure that folks know that I am, and this is going to take place.
Okay. Thank you
know
very
what I
much.
mean? Thank you.
Okay, scheduling of committee meetings and public hearings. We have on Monday, June 3rd at 6:30, our next Finance Committee meeting to hear more of the fiscal year '25 budget, followed by a 7:30 City Council meeting, and then we have our last City Council meeting scheduled for this portion of the yearly session on Monday, June 17th at 6:30. And on that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilor Liang, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. All those in favor? A motion carries.